Welcome to the Busted Knees and Pretty Trees podcast. It's a bit rainy out there today, so come on in. I am Travy J. White, and thanks for stopping by our humble little nature-curious backpacking podcast. We always pack plenty of great stories and conversations about the wild yonder, with a stuffed sack full of hard-hitting, truth-seeking questions and a fashion-forward fanny pack stuffed with tomfoolery. Some of us also packed a good drink or two, or a handy portable bidet, just in case we get into some real mind-blowing stuff. Shouldn't be a problem, though. This isn't one of our off-the-hinges gear episodes. It's rainy day story time, and we're going to shed some light on a legendary American folk hero and friendly OG minimalist ultralight thru hiker.
Come on.
Hold on to those tin caps, folks. With me, I have a couple of good listeners, and they only throw me nice, easy softball questions this episode. We have Bradley Greer, whose artistic obsession continues its unrestrained offensive, conquering brain cell after brain cell. And we also have Patty Richardson.
Hello.
He just returned from the very first on-location follow-up News Panther investigation.
Yeah, that was certainly part of it.
Tell us about it.
Man, it was really cool. I'm not going to lie. It was in a pretty crummy part, Hamtramck. So my cousin Dennis, who's an avid listener of the show as well, he told me a joke that anybody that lives outside of Detroit is afraid to go into Detroit, but if you live in Detroit, you're afraid to go to Hamtramck. And that's where this grove is. And by grove, it's very much just like a lot. So what you're seeing a lot in Detroit is these neighborhoods that are just being dilapidated.
Yeah.
Instead of selling to somebody else, you have like Acres Land Trust or a trust or a conservation group or whatever it is, go in there and they're buying up all this property. Right. And they're just letting it grow out, bringing the nature back into the city kind of a thing.
Yeah, we did a News Panther story about that just recently.
That's right.
Yep.
Are they demolishing structure or just leaving it?
Well, they're demolishing it, but in terms, they're already demolished. You know what I mean? Like these, I'm talking, these are neighborhoods that never came back after the riots, kind of a thing. They could not figure it out, and they are hanging on by the thread. I mean, there were people that lived, but it'd be like one house per block kind of a thing. And this is right where this was. I think I counted 15 or 20 giant sequoias, and they were planted around other trees as well that were brought in here, and they were about 2 feet tall. So just planted, not that large. But what I thought was cool is they didn't.
Well,
go ahead.
We never said like you visited.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, that's right. My bad. So Travy J told us a story a couple weeks ago about the giant sequoias being planted in Detroit in this grove, and my cousin Dennis was gracious enough to kind of give me the info, the street that it was on, everything. So yesterday morning, my mom and my wife and I got up, and my son got up, and we just went downtown, and this was one of the stops that we did. To go look at this giant sequoia grove. Now, once again, they're just about 2 feet tall, so just planted. But what I thought was neat is that it wasn't gated off. It was just like if somebody took this plot of land and planted a bunch of trees on it.
Right.
No gates, no fences, no nothing. So you could walk right up to it. So I was studying the little thing. I also got to touch the needles, which I don't know if that's good or bad. Is it bad?
I don't know. I wouldn't touch it.
Well, I did.
Admit to a forestry crime?
I don't know. Maybe I did. I didn't like fondle the damn thing. I just kind of touched it because in my, like, as I was walking up to it, the thing that kind of came to my mind was like, if you're in giant sequoias, like out in California, the Sierra Nevadas, the needles on that thing is about 200 or 1,000 feet up there.
Yeah.
So you don't really have that experience with it unless they're fell. So I just thought that was the neatest thing, that I'm touching this thing that in 10 billion years is going to be 1,000 feet in the air and nobody's going to have that experience again. So I touched it, and I thought it was really neat looking at the base of it. It looked like a tree, you know what I mean? Like a seedling looks like a seedling. It kind of looks like this spindly, tiny little like dead tree that's about to grow. But these at 2 feet tall, it looked like a tree. It looked like bonsai. You know what I mean? Where you could have a 1,000-year-old bonsai
like it's a
tree.
miniature version of a big tree.
Of a giant sequoia.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and
It was
bonsais
super
normally are like conifers.
Right.
So-
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was really, really neat. Like I told you guys, I'd be happy to take you up there during the day.
Okay.
And get you guys to look at them too. It was pretty cool if anybody's up there. But what I also found out too now is that you can purchase giant sequoia trees. There's a giant sequoia in Fort Wayne. Did you guys know that?
I did not know.
Yeah,
that.
they're everywhere. Well, not everywhere, but the website that sells them, or one of the websites that sells them, they have a list of all the people throughout all the states that own the giant sequoia tree, and everybody sends in photos as they get larger or when they plant them and how they're doing. So you can actually look at all the photos around here
Is
as
it
well.
easy to get a hold of those seeds?
I think it's if I stand corrected, but I believe it was $65 to buy a giant sequoia seedling.
Sapling?
Like a
Yeah,
sapling.
sapling.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's super neat.
I did not know that either.
I had no idea.
Man.
Yeah. Oh,
Oh,
thank you.
Before we do a News Panther, the
Yeah.
fun fact,
Yeah.
Brad used to have a bonsai tree.
Really?
And he gave it to me to take care of.
I had it for a couple years
some
Nice.
reason. And
because I
I could
didn't
not
have
take care of it.
like
It
I
died.
only had a west-facing window at the time or something, so we wouldn't have gotten the correct light.
Right.
So I gave it to Travis. It lasted maybe 2 months.
Dude, that's awesome. Well, you had it for 2 years and then
Yeah.
you gave it to Travis and it died after a month?
Yeah.
Just a couple months? Oh, that's a
Yeah.
bummer. But they are really difficult.
Yeah.
Like the soil structure and how it's just all, it's an entire ecosystem in that little pot.
Yeah, and houseplant care is not a forte of mine.
Yeah, I don't have the green
I
thumb.
can barely keep aloe vera alive. Yeah.
Well, dude, what do you have for us, Brad?
The first
Or
story.
News Panther?
Yep. The first story comes to us from the website Live Science. They have a cool little, I don't know if you still call it a column, like on the webpage.
Yeah.
Called Life's Little Mysteries. And this is one of the stories they covered. So they delved into trying to figure out which animal has the best sense of smell. What comes to your guys' mind when you think of like the best sense of smell?
For some reason, right away, reptile. Some sort of a reptile. Or like a shark?
Yeah, shark. They talk about
Yeah,
sharks.
shark was on the list, and bear maybe.
Yeah, bear is another one that I didn't. Oddly enough, I didn't see reptiles on the list, and that is surprising.
I don't know why
'cause-
that came to my head. It just seems I don't know.
smell
But what
it in
is it?
your tongue.
What
Well,
has the greatest sense?
So this, spoiler alert: there is no definitive answer, but the story goes through like all the different ways to try to determine which one, and it's kind of some stuff I've never really thought about. So, but get ready because there's a lot of info in this story.
Lay it on us. That's what I'm here for.
No.
No way. No way.
So animals use the ability to detect odors for finding mates, avoiding predators, kind of like everything. They need to use their sense of smell. It's very important. Turns out finding which animal has the best sense of smell, it's almost an unanswerable question because there's 5.8 million different odor molecules.
Okay.
5.8
And then every
million.
combination in that 5.8 is a different odor. So like it's pretty much an incalculable figure of how many odors there are to be able to even sense.
Oh, wow. Okay, because if it was me, I would have just put like a piece of raw meat out in the woods and been like, whatever animal shows up first probably has the best sense of smell.
Well, and I learned there's something called combinatorics math.
Oh, yeah. Duh.
And by using that kind of math, it's called combinations without repetition. It's like factorials. So like 5 factorial is 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. So you have to calculate that 5.8 million times. So it's almost infinity number of odors
Good
you can smell.
Lord.
I never even really thought about that. Zoologist Matthias Laska who specializes in sensory capabilities, said, considering that only a tiny fraction of these odorants have been tested with any species so far, any generalizing statement about whether species A would have a better sense of smell than species B would simply be unscientific. So they're basically saying you can't judge it based on how many different odors they can smell. Like this whole story, it's kind of like narrow, like kind of, well, you can't do it this way, can't do it this way. So, but it's all these interesting things. Like, I never knew there were that many odors.
How can they test to know that they smell it?
That's a good point, Travis.
Good job, Travy. Nice.
So, olfaction is the scientific term for sense of smell. So there's like olfactory glands. Everything's based around this olfaction word, which I've never heard of this word. Have you guys heard of it?
I've heard of the word.
Okay.
Yep.
But it's the most difficult of the five senses to study because you can't measure, like you can't, any different atmospheric, like moisture, wind, everything affects odor. So you can't give Beaver A 10 milliliters of this odor and then give that exact same 10 millimeters to Beaver B and see how they react.
Yeah.
Whereas like sight, you can 20/20, you know, like like all the other senses, you have measurable things that you can use to study. Whereas the sense of smell, there's nothing.
I'm not saying I should have, but I've never thought about this.
Yes, that was something, because that's like one thing I've learned and like working in engineering and stuff. A lot of times it's the measurements are the hardest thing. Like you can figure out how to build something or to create something, but if you can't measure it to make sure it's right and accurate, then...
You know how they measure brain activity, like on the computer? They're like scanning you while you're thinking about stuff.
Yeah.
Then it highlights hot spots.
Yeah.
Like, do they do that where if a sense of smell triggers those sensors, then a part of your brain is going to
light
off?
Up. Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, that is where they go next, actually.
Son of a gun.
So they needed to look at different approaches, and they found some intriguing clues when it comes to the number of olfactory receptor genes an animal has. So they do DNA sequencing, and they can tell from the DNA sequencing how many receptors they have based on sequences for proteins in the nose which bind to odor molecules.
What?
But then that connects to the olfactory bulb, the olfactory bulb in the brain that translates it into smell based on neurons firing and stuff.
So if an animal has more of those, then they might consider that an animal with the best sense of smell?
With the most olfactory receptors and their whatever they use to smell with.
Right. Okay.
So if you base it off of that, a 2014 study published in Genome Research counted them in several species of mammals, but it wasn't all encompassing. So there's an asterisk on that.
So not every mammal has olfactory glands?
No, they just didn't study them.
Oh, okay.
I'm assuming they picked 13 in this paper I think like this article is just kind of like they're trying to figure it out. So they're reading all these different journals and stuff. And from what it looked like in this journal, they just kind of like, we think it might be out of these 13, they're good subjects to look at because we know they have a strong sense of smell.
Yeah.
But they left out bears. So that was kind of like an asterisk in it because everybody knows a bear has a strong sense of smell.
Yep.
But they found that African elephants have the highest number of olfactory receptors, and the ones that they did look at, and there's 1,948 receptors. And to put that into comparison, or to like layman's terms, I guess, humans have 396. So elephants have 1948, humans have 396, dogs have around 811, and rats have around 1,207.
Well, they also have massive noses.
Yeah, I agree. Because my immediate question as you were saying that is like, okay, so
but rats are the second most. And they have tiny
noses.
noses.
That's true.
So it's not little thing.
It's not based on body size.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So like elephants' main use for it is to locate food. They can recognize family members through smell.
Yeah.
And detect predators through smell. They can even identify a short time window when a partner is ready to mate based on the smell.
Well, that makes sense too. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, we put off.
That's like most animals, right?
Yeah, you would put off a certain
Mammals,
smell.
I guess, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, so elephants.
Yeah. Out of the 13 that they analyzed, they did the DNA sequence, because I'm sure it probably costs a lot of money to do a DNA sequence on every mammal.
Yeah.
So they just picked 13.
Huh.
I wonder if they communicate a lot more through smell.
That's what I was wondering. It almost makes up for how we can communicate verbally.
Yeah.
They communicate. But then I thought you can't, maybe they can, you can't produce a smell. I want to tell you something. I can't produce a certain smell to make you think that's what I'm telling you.
But you would smell different than everybody else, and you wouldn't have to yelp.
You'd be I got to find some raccoon shit to roll around in, and that's so I can tell them something. That's where it's you can't make yourself smell a certain way to try to communicate something. That's what I was thinking, the one.
But if you're scared and you're getting all sweaty and hot,
Yeah.
and then you start stinking, that could be a warning sign.
Yeah.
Well, I definitely
Why
think
is he
that
sweaty
it's
and hot? What's going on here?
yeah. I would say it's possible in way of fear or something like that. But I think what you
communication.
you couldn't just be I need to tell Travy something real quick.
Yeah. Then they couldn't respond.
Right.
Either.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not speaking.
We're just all farting into the wind.
So, we were getting at earlier, another way they can analyze it is by looking at the animal's olfactory bulb, which is the region in the brain responsible for processing odors. And dogs, for example, have a much larger olfactory bulb than humans do. Turkey vultures have the largest olfactory bulb out of all birds, which makes sense because they fly around and they can smell stuff
Yep.
to dead animals. There was a study published in the Science Journal that said no matter the size of the olfactory bulb, the number of neurons is pretty equivalent amongst all species.
Oh.
So the bulb size does not matter in that circumstance because they have the same number of neurons inside that bulb.
So what I'm hearing is sense of smell is not dictated by size seemingly in any way.
Right. And it kind of partly depends on how you want to look at it, which they haven't found the best way to look at it.
Okay. Yep.
Because you can't look at it.
Well, based on the best way
smell
that they have right now, size does not affect
Correct.
sense of smell.
Correct.
Cool. That's cool.
The best argument so far, I think, is the number of receptors.
Yeah.
The opportunity to smell.
Right.
If you don't have those opportunities to smell different odors, you
Yeah.
can't smell it.
In my brain, I'm working that out as a 1-to-1 ratio.
Yeah.
So one receptor is one smell. So the more receptors you have, it's just that 1-to-1. It's 1,900
Yeah.
smells compared to the 1,200.
That is, imagine the shit that elephants smell. Out of having 1,500 more receptors, half of those have to be some shitty smells that you don't want to smell.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But
Oh.
does that how does that work with sensitivity? I don't know, because you can smell something, but it's not probably you're not
Yeah.
thrown aback by it.
We'll get into that too. Man, you're hitting all the topics, Travis. Thinking through it very logically.
Get it, homie.
Yeah. Tobias Ackles of the Sensory Dynamics and Behavior Lab at the University of Bonn in Germany said that smelling power could be gauged by an animal's ability to sense specific odors. And he gave an example of the African pouched rat that can be trained to detect landmines and has also been used to detect tuberculosis in humans.
Whoa.
So that's kind of if you can train something to smell and they can hone in on just that smell, does that make you have the best sense of smell? Because you can pick
Yeah.
out specific stuff.
You're just a smell assassin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Detecting
That's a
landmines.
great way
How
to
many
say it.
how many pouched rats do you think got blown up by landmines trying to train them how to smell landmines?
Oh, man. So many.
So in the invertebrate world, male silk moths may have the best sense of smell because they can find mates located up to 2.8 miles away by detecting their pheromone molecules. 2.8 miles away.
Dang.
A tiny little moth. It's Crazy.
That is crazy.
Yeah, that makes me wonder, like, how far does your stank go?
And like, does the median, like the humidity levels and like wind direction, how much does that impact it? Or does it just kind of permeate through everything? It's kind of crazy. Man. But there is good news because there are certain things humans are good at smelling that other animals are not.
Apple pie. What?
Fruit
Did
related.
you hear that?
Certain fruit related odors. So you guys are right.
Dude, wow. Dude, Travy, fist bump, man. That was exciting.
But that actually kind of leads to the conclusion of this is like when it comes down to it, it's probably more of like the ability to smell an odor is dictated by behavioral relevance to the odor. So
Like
if
you're
it's
trained to it.
yeah, like if it's an odor that's important for you to survive, like if it's food,
like
predators, like you're gonna have if you need to sense way more smells, you're going
Evolution.
to, yeah.
Yeah.
So like we don't need to smell any more than we do, or we haven't evolved to. So
Yeah.
I was
smell
also
what's
going to say
important.
with your, because that leads to your comment about the shitty smells that an elephant must have, like every so often.
Yeah.
And I would presume that like we also smell some shitty smells.
Yeah.
But you identify those and then you roll out, like you
Yeah.
stop smelling it.
Yeah, like they say, like a dead body. I've never smelled a dead body, but they say that's like the decomposing bodies
Yeah.
is like a smell. You know what it is when you
Yeah,
smell it.
immediately, no matter what.
Yeah.
Because you're supposed to, it's supposed to be gross and like
Yeah, stay
make
away.
you, to stay away.
Yeah. So the article is wrapped up nicely by Tobias Eccles, who we talked about before. He said, rather than naming a single, quote, champion smeller, it's more accurate to say that different animals are specialists, each with a sense of smell shaped by their ecological niche.
Dude, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Because
Pretty cool.
we smelled a pile of dog poop and we're like, oh, got to get out of here.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying.
Flies,
Yeah.
they smell a pile of dog poop
And
they're
love
like,
it.
I can't get there fast enough.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Let's get it.
And they survive off it.
Yeah. Pretty cool story. Life's
Yeah.
Little Mysteries.
Life's
column.
little mysteries.
Yeah. Next, I have a story from National Parks Travelers, which always has great articles on their website.
Okay.
This one is about the NPS accepting proposals for operators for 2 historic chalets in Glacier National Park.
Say that one more time.
The NPS is accepting proposals for operators for 2 historic chalets in Glacier National Park.
Okay.
So it's kind of like what I like about National Parks Travelers is so when they say proposal for operators, like a contractor to run these 2 chalets, like,
Okay.
like
Can you
lodges.
explain? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
A lodge.
So it's like they need a private company that's going to come in and manage them, basically. But what I like about National Parks Travelers is they kind of do the same thing I do, where, like, yeah, that's the headline of the story, but the main point of the story is to talk about these 2 chalets that are in Glacier National Park.
Yeah.
So they sound real. I never knew. You've been to Glacier? Did you know there was like
I've never been to Glacier.
so? Oh, I thought you did.
Nope. That's one of them that, dude, I would love to.
Yeah. Well, wait till you hear about these
Yeah.
places because this is incredible.
Well, you already caught me when something is a lodge and it's called a chalet.
Yeah.
I'm immediately like, sounds
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. These chalets are in the park's backcountry and can only be visited by hiking trails or by horseback. Like the only way to them is on foot or a horse.
Is that kind of like Mount LeConte Lodge?
I don't know.
I think that's the same thing. That's awesome because then you know that the people there, like it's not just some bro
Right.
that like drives up to it, doesn't, just, it's not money oriented
Yeah.
kind of a thing.
Yeah. You got to work for it.
Yeah.
Well, and I'll get even more into why those people probably wouldn't be there. They are both above 6,000 feet in elevation.
Okay.
So they're only open a couple months a year because the trails are only open a couple months a year. But part of the proposal thing, it has high occupancy rates. So people do go and stay at these places. So they were created during the westward expansion around 1910. Glacier was created in 1910. So this was like the following 3 years. These were built by James J. Hill's Great Northern Railway. and they created 9 different backcountry lodges. It's in the Glacier area, not necessarily all in Glacier. And it was just to try to get more people to ride the train to go out west, like especially the west Mountain West area. So it was kind of like almost like a gimmick, or like if you come out here, you can stay at these places.
Well,
But you have to hike to them?
Well, yeah, and back then,
That's just a small...
yeah, like there's a couple. I think like there's still like one of the remaining ones is by like right next to a train station that's still there.
Yeah.
On the west side of the park, just outside the park.
I bet at that point, having 4 walls and a roof would just be incredible.
Yeah, it's like
After
that.
a long journey.
It's like the latest Tarantino movie, Hateful Eight. That all takes place in a place that reminds me of like this, the chalet.
Okay.
Yeah. Either of you seen that movie?
I've seen it.
Okay. These 2 lodges are named Sperry in Granite Park, and they're the only 2 that are left inside the park. So there's like one next to the train station. There's 2 inside the park, and I think those, as far as I could tell, those are the only ones left.
all right.
I know these are the only 2 left inside the park. Oh, so when they built the chalets originally, this was a fun little fact I liked. They built them approximately a day's horse ride apart. So you could like just every day ride a horse to the next one.
Yeah, it's awesome.
How cool would that be?
So cool.
Yeah. Man.
I'd
A
like to know-
chalet instead of a shelter? Okay, new question. Would you rather stay in a haunted shelter or a haunted chalet?
Oh. Or a chalet in 1910.
Yeah.
Haunted chalet.
So Granite Park Chalet is the smaller of the 2. It offers 12 rustic bunk rooms that can sleep 2 to 6 people. Both of these say like 2 to 6 and 2 to 5. What if you're just one? Like you can't just do one? Get a bunk by yourself? It's discriminating.
It's not.
That's how like hostels are. They're like you can get a room with 6 bunk beds in it,
Yeah.
and you can be traveling by yourself, but you might share the room with 12
Yeah.
other people.
I just thought it was weird that it didn't say 1 to 6. It said specifically 2 to 6.
Oh, yeah, I guess that okay, yeah.
Yeah, you'd think, like, I'm not going to get my ass all the way here not to sleep inside.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe, yeah, depends on the weather. So the only food they offer in the Granite Park Chalet is like backpacking meals and snacks. And so like you basically have to carry food in if you want to eat like actual food.
meal, yeah.
They do have a kitchen to prepare the food. There's potable water. It's only a 1/4-mile hike from the chalet to
All
get
right.
your water. And guest rooms do not have heat or electricity, but there is a nearby pit toilet outside.
So I'm just like, when I hear chalet originally, I'm thinking like glam.
No, this is bare bones.
Just a fancy name.
This is a glorified shelter.
Yeah, it's bare bones. But they look nice.
The bare bones?
Yeah, if that's bare bones.
That is not. Look at that floor.
Well, there is one. So when we get to the Sperry, we'll move on to the Sperry Chalet. Sperry, it has 17 private rooms that can sleep 2 to 5. Again, discriminating against solo travelers. The amenities are relatively similar, but at the Sperry Chalet, you get breakfast, a sack lunch, and dinner when you stay there. So that's nice.
That's a nice little bonus.
But the original Sperry Chalet was lost in a wildfire in 2017. So they rebuilt, or like it's the same thing. I don't know if it's like the same bones of the original one, but I think that's like we're looking at a picture of the inside of one, and it looks like a pretty nice cabin.
Darn skippy.
And I think that is the Sperry. I think that's like the newer one. So
that is awesome.
yeah, but you
what's a room like? Like what's
that
the
looks
cost?
really nice.
I didn't see what anywhere from like 200 to 500 a night is what I saw.
Is there a wait period, or is there like a, how we get permits to hike?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's like possible to get one, but you're basically whatever date you can get, you're gonna get. Like it might be hard if you want a specific weekend.
Okay.
I didn't look into the permitting. I should have looked into that. I'm kind of surprised I didn't.
Me too.
But the Sperry does have private rooms where the other one is at bunks. So I'm not sure what the difference between those two are either. Maybe like the private room, you have like a queen bed or something.
Right.
Probably costs a little more.
Yeah, it could. So to get to the Sperry, it's a 6.7 mile trail with an elevation gain of 3,300 feet.
Whew.
So probably not taking too much food with you to that one. There's 3 trails that can get you to the Granite Park one, and they range 4.2 miles to 7.9 miles with around 2,200 to 2,600 elevation gain. So it's a little easier to get to the Granite Park Chalet
Right.
than the Sperry. But that was cool. I never knew. I'd never heard anything about those places.
Nor have I.
They're pretty cool. And like
they look
I think that's the
medieval
like the
almost.
Granite one looks like it's perched like on a ridge overlooking a huge valley.
Man, that'd be stunning.
that does look pretty.
Yeah,
I love that.
it's pretty cool.
It has a balcony. It's 2 stories.
And you're right. With all that ruggedness, you know, the idea of you'd have to bring in any food, you still have to walk the quarter mile. It's nice that you have a chalet like that seems like it's like it. What am I trying to say? It's not this beautiful, beautiful thing in the most pristine backcountry possible that only, you know, Bezoses could get to.
Yeah,
Which is generally like when you talk about these sorts of lodges, you immediately go like the price point is massive.
yeah,
And it's nice that this is like super attainable and you got to really work for it.
yeah.
So that's cool to me.
And it kind of fits the environment. Like you have to
Yeah.
hike to get there. You're like don't have electricity in your
Yeah.
rooms. You have to have a pit toilet.
Yeah. Exactly, because they
seems
could
pretty
just
cool.
put a helipad right outside that motherfucker and then start charging 20 grand a night.
Yeah.
And then nobody else gets that.
Yeah.
You know?
And it looks really cool.
It does
Yeah,
look really
they look
cool.
like their stone wall, like built like really cool lodges.
I'll be looking those up. Faux show.
It made me wonder too if they have like a winter, if they just abandon it in the winter, or if there's somebody that stays there over winter.
Ooh, like the Overlook Hotel
Yeah.
and the
How
do you get
shiny.
that
Yeah.
job?
That's what I was
Do
wondering.
you want that job?
It'd be interesting.
Red drum.
Red Rob.
If you can bring some buddies with you, a bunch of beer. Yeah.
5 months.
No, you have to have whiskey. Keep you warm through the winter.
Whiskey
That's
too,
right.
man.
Oh no, because it said they didn't have heat, so I doubt anybody stays there. Have to have a lot of firewood.
Chewy.
Oh, we'll stock up before.
Oh,
That's it.
dude. Great.
Yeah.
Another set of good
Elephants
stories, man.
have more olfactory glands, things,
Receptors.
You know,
receptors.
that story, Brad really popped it off with a lot of math.
Yeah.
And that I just started going into a tailspin, and I just started like, how does
Yeah.
it work? What's
Yeah.
going on?
No, that was cool. You were on it, Travy.
Yeah, you were.
And I feel like we answered nothing.
Yeah, well,
When it
we
comes to
answered.
smell.
It's more behavioral. Like, what do you need to smell?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
What
you can
what do you
smell.
need to smell to survive?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I'm satisfied with that. That's
Yeah.
And
that's decent
procreate.
for me. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
Lots of smells out
Well,
there.
You got a long episode this one,
Yes,
brother.
I do.
Are you getting jazzed for this? Because you have a lot of teachings to do.
I am very jazzed because it's a local story, I guess, to Fort Wayne, Indiana, and the Midwest. Like, it's one of our legendary folk heroes that we're going to talk about or I guess I'm going to talk about. And because we started with the national park history episode.
Yeah.
And that went so well, just learning about how it all started and everything. Well, we started thinking, well, who are the people behind it?
Yeah.
Who are the greatest saunterers?
Yeah.
Ooh.
You know,
The
explorers.
legends, the OGs.
Yeah, the people who, walked these trails for the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So at first I wanted to go with the obvious, like Lewis and Clark and all
Right.
that.
Daniel Boone.
But I was like, all right, we got something here in Fort Wayne that's pretty cool.
Yeah, we do.
So I got a little tale to tell about John Chapman,
Ooh, John Chapman.
AKA
Johnny Appleseed.
Johnny Appleseed.
Yeah.
One of our little childhood folklore Americana
Yeah.
stories. And yeah.
Senior Tin Cap.
Yeah, our single A baseball team's named after him.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited. What do you say we
sir.
get into it?
Let's do it.
You in?
Totally.
All right.
So as I mentioned, I wanted to do Johnny Appleseed.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because he kind of has a place in the Fort Wayne heart. He spent his last days in this area, and he died in Fort Wayne.
Oh.
And there's some, I think, dispute as to where his final resting place is. I'm not sure. In my research, I didn't find any definitive answers, but I've heard like his actual, because some have around Fort Wayne think that he's buried at Johnny Appleseed Park here in Fort Wayne.
Yep.
Where we have the Johnny Appleseed Festival.
Yes, we do.
I think in September every year, which is actually really awesome.
Really awesome.
Good chicken and dumplings.
Yeah. Good root beer.
It's not root beer.
It's not? Oh, it's
What do they call
Sazerac.
Sassafras? Is it sassafras?
Sassafras?
But yeah, there's all sorts of reasons to go to it. It's really fun.
Yeah, super fun.
Thing to do. And our baseball team's named the Tin Caps.
Yep.
After the legendary Johnny Appleseed, who may or may have not wore a tin pot on his head. We'll get to that.
Okay.
But his actual name wasn't Johnny Appleseed. That was just a nickname he had picked up. He was born John Chapman, September 26th, 1774.
1774.
So that's 250 years ago.
This dude is an OG.
It's just after Civil War, or I mean the
Revolutionary
Revolutionary
War.
War.
Not
Just before it.
Yeah.
Before it.
You know what happened in 75?
Boston Tea Party.
The United States Army was born.
Whoa. 1775.
It's
It's 250th anniversary
yeah.
this year.
Oh.
It's coming up, right? Like June, or maybe it already happened.
oh shit. June 12th.
I was thinking June 12th.
Well.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, brothers. I let you down.
Your drill sergeant would be pissed.
Yeah, born in 1774 in Massachusetts to Nathaniel Chapman and Elizabeth Chapman. And what's Nathaniel? He was a Minuteman putting the freaking business to the Redcoats.
Oh, nice.
During the Revolutionary War.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So unfortunately, his mother had picked up some sort of sickness. I'm not sure if it was, I don't want to say constipation, but I think that was kind of serious back then. That could have done it.
It's still serious.
And she passed away, and his dad remarried, and they had 10 kids. Brad and I were talking about that earlier, how everybody just used to have so many kids back then. You had to.
Yeah, you didn't know how many would survive. Just had to keep pumping them out.
That's why our mortality rate was so low.
Yeah.
Or no, the
So high.
high.
Mortality rate.
The average age was low.
Yeah.
Well, I was
Death.
thinking age low, yeah. But later, John Chapman's dad would encourage him to go into the study of nurseries, I guess, or whatever,
Arborist?
to be a professional nurseryman,
Oh.
I think.
Ooh.
Okay.
And so, yeah, when he was younger, he learned about how to take care of trees and all that stuff. And so that's how he learned about the apple trees that he's famous for spreading around. And like kind of the cartoonish figure that we've created of Johnny Appleseed was he kind of went west and into the Midwest, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, and just kind of randomly threw these apple seeds out, and they grew orchards and stuff like that.
Just a trail of apple
Yep.
trees behind him.
But it was actually a little more calculated than that. Once he learned how to be a nurseryman, he would just start heading out west. I think he planted his first orchards in Pennsylvania, and then move his way to. He was more prolific in Ohio and Indiana.
Yeah.
Later, but
Was there some kind of government subsidy you got? Like if you planted land, you could have the land or something.
Yeah, because this was, in I think it's like early 1800s where we were starting, pioneers were going west, and the Midwest was still pretty, barren of settlers.
Yeah, this was pre Lewis and Clark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I mean, right after the Revolutionary War, that we had just
crazy.
become an independent nation. So, yeah. And then so what Johnny Appleseed would do, because of that law where what it was, you needed to go to a piece of land or whatever, find a plot, and then cultivate part of it and prove that you were farming on it or improving it or whatever. And then you would get it. I don't know. How many acres, Brad?
I was thinking it was like 100.
100 acres?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it would be yours.
Because without machinery, that's a lot of acres
Gee,
to do by yourself.
Oh my gosh, yeah. To clear the land and make it, tillable,
Yeah.
or to be able to plant an orchard.
I like the idea of him, like he's sitting there thinking, like, whoa, and the inspector came out to make sure I made this land.
Yeah, right.
Like he's going to be here in 4 months. I
Yeah.
gotta
Yeah.
get my shit
He
straight.
rides in on a horse and looks at it for 20 minutes and leaves.
Yeah.
Wait, are we saying that when he planted these trees or these orchards along his route, that he was then like in that became his land?
Well, I think he established a spot, right?
Yeah,
Like,
so what he would do is he'd kind of predict where he think the settlers would want to come, and then he would, choose that land, and then he would clear it and put in apple orchards.
Really?
Yeah, and then they could come, and he could
Settle it.
settle it there.
Yeah.
And he would earn money from it, and then he would teach them how to take care of the trees. And then
Wow.
he'd move on to
That's
It
way
would take
different.
time to establish. He would establish orchards.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, our trees, it took us 6 years before you start fruiting, so you have that
Oh,
6 year
yeah.
time gap.
It probably took longer back then.
That's way different than the quote unquote cartoonish figure that we are told about. Like in terms of,
Right.
my idea was that he was just carrying a bag of apple seeds and he was like, sprinkle it there, like a fairy in magic dust.
No,
you know?
it was very much a business. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
and fighting the battle of being like hundreds of miles from any civilization.
Yeah,
too.
right.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and I mentioned earlier, like he was the OG ultralighter.
Yeah.
He was kind of an awkward dude
Yeah.
from people's reports, and he would go to where he was going, from state to state, and some said he didn't even wear shoes, and a lot of people mentioned it was like a coffee bag sack
Yeah.
that he would cut a hole in, 3 holes, 2 for his arms and 1 for his neck, and he would wear that for a shirt.
That had to be so uncomfortable.
Oh, man.
And then, of course, the, titular tin cap,
Yeah.
Dude.
which was a pot that he would put on his head with a long handle, like our, the baseball
Yeah.
logo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look up the 4 Wayne 10 caps.
Yeah. That's it. I wonder how much of that, though, is drawn from that cartoonish figure that you're alluding to.
Well,
You know?
I think, just his minimalist kind of way of life.
Yeah.
I think he did. It's kind of true that he just kind of wandered around like that. He didn't care. I don't know about the pot on the head
Or the no
thing,
shoes.
but they do think he may have had like a tin hat that he would use to, cook stuff in.
Oh, yeah.
It may not have been a pot,
Right.
but, something,
I could see barefoot.
a similar tool.
I could see barefoot more than having a pot in your
Yeah,
hand.
they actually said he would entertain kids by sticking little needles in the bottom of his feet because they were so tough and he wouldn't feel it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, are there any orchards still like in use that is like an original orchard planted by old John Chapman?
Well, it's kind of a complicated issue with apple trees because there's no original trees Except I read about this one that's in Ohio that they said it's still an original tree, but I'm confused if it's something that they've just like added onto it with whatever the heck that process is. Grafting when they graft it. Because apple trees, I don't think live that long.
That's what I was thinking. Like, trees do they have a life? If nature doesn't kill it, like blowing it over or something, do they just die off after time?
Everything dies, Brad.
True. The law of thermodynamics.
Taxes and death.
I never thought about that in terms of, I would have thought that they would last as long as you have somebody taking care of it and, doing its thing.
Yeah, I think they have a shorter lifespan than a lot of trees.
I'm
not sure that's why. But the thing about this grafting stuff is because they have a short lifespan, that's one reason. But another reason that the orchards would not be original is because you can't, like the same kind of apple tree doesn't, because they're, what do they call it when something can mate with itself?
Asexual?
Yeah, because it has the male and female parts.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of plants do self-pollinate, but apple trees don't do that. It just doesn't compute.
Right.
So you'll never get the same apples, I guess, from a different tree. They're going to be a little bit different. So you have to graft if you want to change it.
Interesting.
You can't just cross-pollinate like the really good apple because it won't cross-pollinate with itself. So you have to always combine these different kinds of
That's
apples.
why when they tell you if you're going to get fruiting trees, you always want to have two. You don't want to buy a singular one. You want to have two so they can cross-pollinate all the time.
Yep.
Back and forth, back and forth. Yeah. And then also if you have like a peach tree and it's being pollinated at the same time as an apple tree, there's a good chance you're going to get a peachy flavored apple or vice versa because it will cross-pollinate each other.
Interesting.
Now you also have trees that can grow 3 different types of fruit on it. Like a single tree can produce an apple, peach, and a pear, which is crazy.
Yeah. I think is that through like vigorous breeding or is that through like changing the DNA?
I have no idea.
I think they can graft like a branch from a tree onto another tree.
Like a pear tree?
Because I think
into
they
an
even
apple tree
can
or something?
graft like pistachio branches onto a tree and grow them. Like there's some crazy shit.
Yeah. So then if I'm hearing you right, because John Chapman or Johnny Appleseed walked so far, and I assume he created all sorts of settlements that like sprung up after he was there, right? So there's no like
He
way
kind of paved the way.
Right. But I'm curious as to, like there's no way to go like see his work because of the lifespan of an apple tree. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
There still are existing orchards that you can go visit.
That was originally settled by, dude, that would be awesome.
But they're probably just like, this was the orchard, but it's not the trees.
Right. Yeah, I got
Yeah.
you. This is the plot of land that Johnny Appleseed graced with his.
But those trees probably are descendants of those.
Yeah.
other
Right, I got
trees,
you.
Yeah.
That's still super cool.
Yeah.
I wonder what my next question is going to be is, do you know do they have like written record of the path that John Chapman took? Like, is that a trail? You know
I think
what I
they
mean?
probably do through, I'd say, sales documents and stuff, because he was a businessman, so there'd have to be deeds passed, right?
Yeah, like land deeds and.
But he was also just a well-known figure throughout his travels because he was such an eccentric person.
So eclectic.
And people knew who he was, like saw how he dressed and all that. But I think his travels are pretty well.
It'd be cool to see if anybody or if it was possible to walk that same trail.
Well, for a future segment that we may or may not be covering is about the National Trail System.
Yeah.
And I don't remember seeing that as a National Historic Trail.
Interesting.
It's kind of surprising.
Yeah, it is.
The Johnny Appleseed Trail?
Unless his route was like the Ohio River or like a well-known, like what everybody traveled.
It was probably,
waterways.
yeah, so like to get to point A to point B as fast as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did he have kids?
No, because he had some, I can't remember the name of the religion.
Oh, yeah. I do remember hearing something.
Yeah,
it was
but
a crazy religion.
it
right?
was kind of basically a Christian, one with nature kind of religion, I guess. Oh, he was a follower of the Swedenborgian church.
Swedenborgian.
Yeah, I think it was some science and philosophy dude in Sweden started this, I guess, new church movement. I'm not sure how it made it to America, but basically it emphasized simplicity, charity, and a mystical connection to nature.
Oh.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Is that still around?
That's a religion I can maybe dive into.
Right. And on his travels, he often preached that religion to people.
Swedenborgian?
Yeah. So he really took nature seriously. There's kind of these myths where he didn't like to start fires, at night because if there were mosquitoes, he didn't want to kill them.
Oh.
Really?
Yeah. And there's a myth about how he took in an injured wolf cub and nursed it back to health, and it became like his pal.
Dude, Johnny Appleseed is badass.
Yeah.
Because wasn't he known as like one of the most generous people ever too?
Super generous.
Like if people couldn't pay for his saplings or tree saplings, like he'd
Yep.
just be like, you know what, just give me that goat and we'll call it you.
Yeah,
Whatever.
he'd barter for, if they didn't have the money, or he'd just like write it off.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds
He'd be
like
you
that's
know what, go ahead. And he'd make sure to teach everybody how to maintain the orchard. And he often gave away free saplings and stuff.
sounds like that's a
people.
tenement of his religion. Like,
Yeah.
that's the kind of religious teachings I can get with, dude.
But the funny thing about these apples is they weren't like the apples we're thinking of.
Yeah, I
now,
kept
Big
thinking
Juicy
that.
ones. They're
I bet
more
they're
like
like bitter and
crab apples. But they weren't really for eating. They made a lot of hard cider out of it.
Nice.
Because you could store that for longer than you could store the
Right.
apples because it's fermented.
right.
Yeah.
So they called like the good stuff Applejack.
I know Applejack.
Yeah.
I've had Applejack.
And so that's how they would get calories when they
That
in
is
the wintertime. and stuff.
Awesome. So Johnny Appleseed's out there setting bars up everywhere.
Everywhere.
Come on in, dude. Come on in.
Everybody on the frontier is just getting lit, dude.
Dude,
all
I
day
could
long.
imagine that Johnny Appleseed was everybody's best friend at this point. Like, you know what I mean? He rolls into this thing. He builds this orchard, teaches everybody how to maintain it. Everybody's getting rock drunk on this stuff, enjoying it.
The
building
Corona
calories.
truck's pulling in.
Yeah, he is like the original silver bullet train from Coors Light. Like, you know,
The Budweiser carriage.
yeah. That's
Clydesdale
awesome,
come
dude.
over.
That's cool. You're right, because I did not think that. I was apples, like red apples, Granny
Yeah.
Smiths, all the way down the line.
There are some, I guess, species of apples. I don't know what you call them when they're different flavors at the grocery store.
Yeah,
But some of them came from his trees.
really.
Yeah, some of I don't know if it's like Granny Smiths or Red Delicious, something like that.
Cool. So then he
um,
also
Yeah.
had
His legacy continues in the different kinds of apples that we have
cool,
today.
man.
Yeah, for sure.
Nice.
Yeah, because they may not even be, because that was when American was getting its identity and its roots.
Yeah.
So like apples may not have even been a thing if it weren't for planting tons of apple trees everywhere.
And then down the line now it's like so like iconic to America, the apple pie,
Yeah.
you know, that kind of stuff.
I was thinking about that. Like, does anybody love apples as much as fucking Americans do?
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know either.
Especially have as many varieties of apples. Like every time I go, there's a new apple.
Yeah. Oh, I agree with that. Did he explain like why apples? Like, did it have to do with the fact that apples are so hardy that they can be grown all along? Or was there is there a reason why he fell in love with the apple?
Well, I know he was an apprentice under some forester dude, Mr. Crawford. I don't know how he was significant, but
Right.
He learned about it and he was really into that shit. So
And I think
I guess, and then he had the business. He was like, I'm just gonna go west, become one with nature.
Yeah.
Spend my life outdoors, setting up orchards.
Yeah.
And making a little money off it.
Man.
I mean, it's
And
good
just being a
foresight.
good dude.
It was like good foresight too. Like people are going to be coming. I'm going to get ahead of them
Yeah.
and set up places for when they do come.
Yeah.
Make a ton of, because he was pretty rich when he died, right? Like he owned thousands of acres of land.
Yeah.
Well,
He owned thousands of
he was
acres.
land rich
Yeah.
at least.
How did he
got
die?
land.
How did he die? When did he die?
He died in Fort Wayne, Indiana.
Right.
At the age of 70.
Oh,
Nice.
Which was
Back then.
insane.
Sheesh.
man.
And like I said earlier, the gravesite, not quite. There's argument. I think there's one up north somewhere.
We don't know how he died. Just old age.
Pneumonia, I
Pneumonia?
believe. Yeah.
So kind of probably like old
Well, yeah,
age.
because
Well, I mean, back then, 70, hell.
and this is in the early 1800s through the early like teens.
If he was born in 74, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just wondering, like, too, that's still when this was territory.
Yeah.
And then so there were still Indian tribes and that whole thing hasn't ironed itself
Yeah,
out
I
quite
wonder if
yet.
they're like, do you see that crazy white boy who fled through here?
Yeah, like that adds to that. I mean, not just the animals, the flora, the fauna, all that stuff, but it's the other people that are still there. And he had to make his way down. He's like, I'm just doing this apple tree thing. You know what I mean? Nobody. That's
Well, they said
that's crazy.
He even made friends with all the Native Americans too.
Right.
Like they accepted him.
I would
'Cause he was
imagine
such a
so.
nice
Yeah,
dude
he had
and-
nothing. No, he wasn't posing harm.
No.
This dude was trying to plant shit.
Nobody was gonna mess with him.
Cool.
You know, when I was thinking about like the kind of person Johnny Appleseed was, and I just recently went through all the Grizzly Man stuff.
Yeah.
I could totally see Johnny
Yeah.
Appleseed being like Grizzly Man.
Yeah.
Like he's strange, but you can't help but love him.
Yeah, I agree.
And he's such an amazing person and he loves nature.
That's cool. Swedenborgian.
Yeah,
I'm
you'll have
stuck
to
on
look
that.
that
I will be researching the hell out
religion
of that
up.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
That'll be an
cool.
interesting one. But yeah, and he spent, I think they said like the last 10 years of his life in Fort Wayne and around the area. So he was, a part of the community for a little while, and Fort Wayne makes a pretty big deal about it, and I like it.
Yeah, we sure do celebrate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's the only word I can use right now. It's just, this is cool to me.
Yeah, and I kind of wondered because our motto is, keep on sauntering.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, do you think Johnny sauntered a lot, or was he just trying to hustle his ass to the next
I don't
place?
know.
Or
I mean, because you're making him sound like, once again, that cartoonish figure that we have of him there's no business attached to it. It's
Right.
just the love of nature and apple trees. And he's just out there just sauntering, like with a smile on his face, kind of skipping, like, here you go,
Yeah.
kind of an idea that you have. And now you're presenting this more of like, this is a determined businessman. And so in that regard, I would say he probably didn't saunter because it was all business. But at the same time,
I mean, he spent every freaking waking hour
yeah.
and sleeping hour outside,
Yeah. God, that's cool. No shoes, burlap sack, shirt. That guy's skin was probably like sandpaper,
Oh, just leather.
just leather, man. Leather. Strikes a match like on his forearm.
Massive hands.
Jeez Louise. That's
Yeah.
cool, dude.
I'd like to meet Johnny Appleseed.
So would I. I think he's that just slowly climbed my list of, like, if you ask me which historical figure I'd like to meet, I think Johnny Appleseed's now in the top 5.
And he does his journey at such an interesting part of time in American history.
Yeah.
And like his father was in the war, and then the expansion west, and that's our area when the flood came through, and just kind of, he really is, the root, one of the roots of our story here in Fort Wayne.
Yeah. He is the OG Saunterer.
Yeah.
What a great one to start with, Travy.
Yeah, I thought Lewis and Clark would be kind of too on the nose. But
Yeah.
let's talk about Johnny Appleseed, man.
Damn right, dude.
Well, I hope I gave enough good information and didn't leave too many holes in it.
I think you probably left some holes, but I think that's perfectly fine,
Yeah,
man.
do some research. It's an interesting story.
Yeah, I will be. I might start wearing no shoes all the time. All the time.
I was thinking about that. Just walking on my driveway, I would be like,
We
hurts.
passed people on the trail that are barefoot.
Really?
Me and you did. We have.
Really?
Yeah. You don't remember? I feel like I feel like I've seen it quite a bit.
it's pretty shocking.
Yeah.
That sounds miserable.
Yeah.
Damn.
How long does it take to build your feet up?
Yeah, I'd say,
to
like,
be
I'm
that
sure
big?
you don't just jump straight into doing that. You probably have to build, like, basically
Callus?
a callus in the whole bottom part of your foot.
It took forever to build guitar fingertips. I can't imagine how long it would take to
Yeah, and how much
build
pain.
the bottom of your feet. How many sticks you'd have to step
But
on?
then
and
you
be
get to
like,
walk barefoot.
Son of a
But then do you even feel the earth?
Ooh.
damn.
Wow,
Because
Brad.
it defeated.
What a
defeats the
great
purpose.
question.
No, you and the earth are working together better than ever.
You ever seen that Zac Efron or a show where he travels the earth with that other gentleman? That other guy always says that every time he's out doing anything, he tries to take his shoes off because it's like mentally and physically better for you, because you do innately like become one with the thing you're walking on. So he says that
You're
it's like
exposed.
extremely like beneficial for your brain and your body and everything to walk barefooted.
I can see that.
Yeah, it's a great show too.
It always feels good to go walk through some dirt.
Yeah, it does. Or even just like grass, like a nice plush green yard. Jeez Louise, that feeling is so nice.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Got to get out there.
yeah, you do. I think you did great, Travy J. Way to go on our first historical figure.
Well,
Yeah.
got her done. Johnny
Got her
Appleseed.
done, Johnny Appleseed.
Let's go, Fort Wayne.
Let's go. Cool.
You dudes ready to get out of here?
Yeah.
All right. Well, keep on sauntering.
Bye.
Yeah.